The ALPS compliance and regulatory function is really a powerful concept.
ALPS does simplify compliance, and it does so by providing someone with the framework. Because, trying to be compliant to like a regulatory standard, it's like kind of where do you start?
Looking at comparable recalls that have happened in industry is enough to say that you don't want that to happen to your company as well.
The United States, now that's an interesting market because each state, there are 50, we treat them almost like 50 different countries. They all have different standards. Some of them haven't even allowed for cannabis use, production, manufacture.
Depending on the types of products that you choose to make, number one, the number of standards that you have to be compliant to can be a whole kind of mess in itself, and trying to navigate, okay, do I have to do this, or do I have to abide by this standard, but this standard says something else?
We have some clients who will be at the ground where there's very little to no regulation, but we think that there's value in bringing in compliance services so that when that regulation comes, you're ahead of the curve.
I think from the ALPS standpoint, we're essentially providing a document management system. And that document management system is going to be the building block to being a compliant company in a regulatory or regulated environment.
We began with a list of SOPs that a cannabis facility might use and brainstormed the priorities to develop into a product that the client can customize.
Now, all it is just understanding that finite body of work, and then from there, learning on how you're going to improve your process by continuously abiding by those particular regulations. And if they change, now just adopting those changes into that framework that's been built.
People don't want to be hunting for their information. It needs to be logical and intuitive language. So the terminology that we use, the numbering systems that we implement for our SOPs and processes, these need to make sense when you glance at it. You need to see the number and see the name and understand what it is. If you have to dig into that document, it's a barrier to accessibility.
I myself have seen many operations where there is no formal training, where there's a sort of word of mouth culture. People say, hey, this is how you do that. And oftentimes it's not necessarily the process owner or the manager or the team lead doing that training. It's sort of what I call incidental learning. Here, go ahead and just start working, and the person's there wondering what they do, and their teammate leans over and gives them a little elbow and says, well, I do it this way. And another teammate who may or may not get along with that teammate gives the elbow and says, well, I do it this way, and this is how you should really do it.
Information accessibility and comprehension is one of the most important things that we have to contend with. We want to make sure that the training makes the assumptions of a level of knowledge that is a reasonable assumption. We don't want to go into training people on concept C when they don't know concept A. So there needs to be a logical progression of information acquisition so that we can start on the assumption of a base level that we've established rather than jumping into the deep end.
Once someone's actually in the job and they need something to refer back to, that kind of standard practice is always there, documented, for somebody to always go back and say, I'm facing an issue here, what do I do? There's always that reference piece, so there's never going to be kind of that ambiguity, and it really does help with a lot of the learnings too. And I feel like standard operating procedures and documents of the like are living documents. They're never really things that are static. They change with experiences of the company. So if a particular issue was faced by a facility for the first time and it wasn't something that was represented in a standard operating procedure, that's an opportunity for it to be captured in there.
These templates that we've generated, which we customize for each client, they come from the real world. We saw how facilities had overly complicated SOPs. And on the other hand, we saw what happens when there aren't SOPs, and that's where chaos happens. So at the end of the day, training is solved through standard operating procedures. It allows continuous improvement, and it creates a quality culture. The next person who comes in, somebody gets promoted or they leave, the employee comes in to replace them, they step right into the quality culture, and it reduces, again, downtime for the facility and it keeps things running smoothly.
It's very likely most of our clients will have not experienced an audit before from a regulatory body. We offer the products and training to allow them to reach that level of compliance, traceability, and audit readiness.
In a regulated environment, if an inspector were to walk into a facility and say, I'd like to see that you are actually preventing physical contamination by having a metal detector placed in line, your answer to the auditor would just be yes, we do that. Okay, I'd like to see some proof. And that's typically how all audits will always go. They're always asking for the proof. They're always asking for historical data, records of events. And the document management system is so crucial to being able to provide that type of information because, again, you could be doing all of this, but if you can't prove that you did it, it's as if you weren't even doing it anyway. So I think when it comes to understanding compliance, and the biggest piece to it is centered around those documents, and providing a document management system is going to be very crucial to essentially being compliant in that type of environment.